Within 5 years, 43 hectares of this land could be transformed into a thriving industrial estate. Lake Macquarie Council last night finally approved the project. Local developer Bob Califf says with nearby estates filling up, demand will be big.
There are none around in this region. There are demands put on Lake Macquarie Council because they have nothing else.
Minutes from the F3 freeway, the Gateway Industrial Estate is already attracting interest from manufacturers, warehousing and distribution companies. With 97 sites planned, the development is expected to be a major boost for local employment.
It'll have to create about 2,000 jobs, and surely jobs are very important for the community.
After Council's initial concerns about preserving plant species on the site, plans to keep a strip of vegetation have been dropped. They claimed a vegetation corridor would be of little benefit to the environment. Work is expected to begin on the site in 6 months. Sarah Griffiths, NBN News.
That's still being debated. I'm hoping it can be changed. But to be involved with the side away from here, it's difficult.
Bill Dwyer was a familiar face at greyhound racetracks across New South Wales. His efforts in establishing premier events on the racing calendar are well documented in greyhound archives. He died earlier this year.
Well, excellent, wonderful fella. He was with our showground for about 8 years as our secretary, and of course while he was there the dogs were really thrived ahead under his organisation.
Such is the respect for Dwyer that friends and colleagues from across the state made the trip to Maitland. The club where it all started in 1971 staged a race in memory of its friend.
You wouldn't hear anyone say anything about Bill Dwyer. Probably only the Sydney clubs might go crook about him a little bit because he always wanted to outdo those fellows.
There couldn't be a more fitting tribute than a race. Dwyer established several in his career, including the first $100,000 event at Dapto.
Oh, I'm happy, yes, at his memorial, but it's a hard night tonight. He put such a lot of time in greyhound racing, and he hasn't been gone that long.
A windfall for some, for others a memory that's sure to last a lifetime. Jonathan Upton, NBN News. Newcastle Falcons were given specialist training today, a far cry from last night's video session. Sean Dennis admits he gave his side plenty to think about. But the rookie coach isn't just pointing the finger at his players. He says he needs to improve as well.
By no means am I performing to the best of my ability, so it's all a learning experience from me, but Saturday night will tell.
After a solid start to the season, the Falcons have gone off the rails in the last 2 weeks with 4 consecutive losses. It's a trend Dennis wants to reverse fast.
It's time to get a little tougher, and maybe I've been a little bit too busy stroking egos, etc., rather than facing some home truths. And I feel we've watched those, we've seen those, and now it's time for us to put them on the court.
While Newcastle has struggled recently, Adelaide has found its feet. The 36ers have won the last 4 from 4.
And we're desperate and we need to win, and it's time that we put that pressure on ourselves and we stepped out and played like it.
Jonathan Upton, NBN News.
The security operation swung into full force this afternoon. Outside the venue for tonight's rally, barricades have been erected to keep the thousands of predicted demonstrators and Miss Hanson's supporters apart. Police are also out in force. More than 200 officers are on duty, including members of the Special Operations Group. Speaking on radio today, the controversial Queensland MP was vowing not to be put off.
I'm going to go ahead with this, and I welcome anyone who wants to listen to what I have to say.
The 1,500-seat Civic Theatre is a sellout for the One Nation launch. Premier Bob Carr has appealed for calm and urged people not to demonstrate, but it's an appeal likely to fall on deaf ears. The Premier has also dismissed suggestions that a One Nation branch in Newcastle could pose a threat to Labor in one of its traditional strongholds. For her part, Ms Hanson has rejected claims she's trying to make political mileage out of BHP's decision to shut down steelmaking operations.
I'm not there tonight just because of what's happened to BHP. I'm very, very concerned about BHP, and but no, this was organised quite a while ago.
Even before Ms Hanson arrives at tonight's rally, her presence is causing problems. The closure of streets around the Civic Theatre has led to peak hour traffic chaos.
Give them the opportunity to hear me personally, so the tickets are...
For a party claiming to embrace Australians under the banner of One Nation, the divisions it's creating couldn't have been more obvious last night. 4,000 protesters vented their anger through heckles and jeers at the 1,200 supporters, forced to run the gauntlet of a hostile crowd into the Civic Theatre. But many die-hard Hanson fans were unfazed.
Pauline Hanson's tops. Saviour of Australia. Count on it.
I think she's just coming forth and saying what a lot of people are afraid to say.
With a no-fly zone over Newcastle, 350 police and 40 security personnel, Ms Hanson was afforded more protection than the Prime Minister himself. She was smuggled safely into the building without facing her antagonists. Once inside, supporters began making a noise of their own, giving Ms Hanson thunderous applause as she made her entrance. Ms Hanson launched into her speech with a stinging attack on Newcastle Council, the Labor Party and minority groups, claiming they tried to silence her. While denying that she is racist, Ms Hanson targeted Asians for Australia's crime and drug problems.
But we must also save ourselves and our children from those criminal elements that are protected by policies that simply import little bits of other countries into Australia.
It took just a few heckles for 3 people to be thrown out by police. Getting down to business, Ms Hanson said the BHP steelworks could be saved by workers simply digging into their own pockets to set up a joint venture and run the plant themselves. She also called for increased tariffs on imported steel. Ms Hanson told her supporters to make a difference at the ballot box before sounding a warning to her political opponents. Simone Cobb, NBN News.
43-year-old Kevin Gallagher of Merriweather and 37-year-old Carl Williams were arrested on Saturday at Swansea, not far from a branch of the Newcastle Permanent Building Society, which police say they were planning to rob. In the car were gloves and balaclavas, a 12-gauge shotgun and an M1 carbine, both shortened and loaded. A search of Williams' Swansea house also revealed another 3 weapons, including an SKS assault rifle. Williams and Gallagher appeared in Newcastle court today, charged with firearm offences and conspiring to commit an armed robbery. The court was told police had taped phone conversations between the pair. Kevin Gallagher represented himself in court, telling the magistrate the charges were based on speculation and innuendo. He said there was no armed robbery planned for Saturday. He was just a passenger in a stolen car which contained sawn-off weapons. Both men were refused bail. Gallagher was on parole for the 1982 murder of an inmate at Parramatta Jail. Police say the weapons seized are similar in appearance to those used in the armed robbery of the Newcastle Permanent Building Society at Mount Hutton in 1996. It is one of 11 armed robberies police are looking into. They believe the one gang is involved in all the hold-ups, which have netted more than $650,000. Jodie McKay, NBN News. Famous around the world as one of the most dynamic environmental activists, Dr. Vandana Shiva is one of the keynote speakers at this week's Pathways to Sustainability conference. On hearing about BHP's decision to shut down its Newcastle steelworks, Dr. Shiva decided to give a lecture tonight on what she believes brought it about. The renowned researcher says the global economy has allowed BHP to move its operations to countries where labour and resources are cheaper.
This idea of global competitiveness is just a very clever way of saying we will be responsible to no people anywhere, we will be responsible for no ecosystem anywhere, but we will exploit people and nature everywhere.
She says the company has a responsibility to Newcastle because it was the workers and the natural resources which created its wealth. To reclaim economic power, Dr. Shiva urges communities and governments to unite and refuse to give in to corporate blackmail.
I think the BHP walkout should be a lesson on how community wealth needs to be community controlled.
Simone Cobb, NBN News. It was literally grassroots education. Tomorrow's saviours of the planet were elbow deep in mud as they learned how to build a sustainable future. But the students were also teaching the masters. A group of international delegates attending the Pathways to Sustainability conference in Newcastle were impressed with the new generation of greenies.
Germany, we mostly started with an adult education program, and here you started just with the children. That's the best position for the long-term perspective.
More than 1,000 delegates from 40 countries are attending the conference, which is committed to finding sustainable solutions to environmental problems at the local level. Unlike the Rio Earth Summit 5 years ago, delegates say they are committed to action and not just rhetoric.
I'm extremely confident that the design of the program is going to ensure that local government, where things happen quickest and most efficiently, is going to take on a new charter to lead the implementation of sustainable development.
After just 2 days, organisers are already saying the conference is making a world of difference.
It's been some really moving presentations, and people who've learned a tremendous amount. And I know moving around the conference, people who've decided to do things differently as a result of being in Newcastle.
To empower the local initiatives, the conference is looking to the federal government for endorsement. It's hoped the Environment Minister Senator Hill will make a major announcement on Thursday, which supports Premier Carr's bid to see the environment considered in all council decisions. Simone Cobb, NBN News.
Heartened by the support shown by a large crowd at a charity drag race in Tuncurry last year, a group of drag racing enthusiasts have decided to start up their own racing facility near Wingham and their proposed site, the old Wingham Racecourse.
It is close to town. It is still away from residential areas. I think the closest house is about 350 metres away.
The racecourse, deserted after local race meetings were moved to Torres bushland racetrack, has been left to vandals. Claiming they would attract around 3,000 people to a meet, the racing enthusiasts say an attraction of this kind would be just what the region needs.
This is basically what we're doing it for, trying to bring tourists into this area and get the economy going, because this area is lacking at the present moment as far as that's concerned.
If accepted, the track would be the only one of its kind between Eastern Creek and Willowbank in Queensland. The racing track is one of several plans presented to Taree Council by various sporting groups on what to do with the reserve. Council will decide on which proposal it will support before putting the plans on public exhibition. Tanya Carlisle, NBN News.
That the couple ever survived the collision with the train is a miracle. This twisted, crumpled wreck, all that remains of their Pajero four-wheel drive. The pair from Queensland were travelling south along the Newell Highway, about 10 kilometres north of Moree at about 6:30 last night. Police say they mustn't have seen the 3,000-tonne goods train when they came to a level crossing, the driver ploughing into a wagon.
The car has become wedged between the two last carriages and carried quite some distance, 1,500 metres, to a railway bridge.
The car was finally dislodged by a pylon on this bridge. The train continued on, its driver unaware of what had happened. 63-year-old Walter Harris freed himself from the wreckage to get help, but in the darkness he fell off the bridge, plummeting more than 10 metres.
The female passengers have been able to get to the new highway, waved in a passing motorist, and as a result all the emergency services were alerted.
Both were taken to Moree District Hospital. Mr Harris died a short time later. His 64-year-old companion who suffered chest injuries is in a stable condition. Sarah Griffiths, NBN News.
Entrepreneur Michael Edgley has pitched his big top in Newcastle, and the master showman gave the media a glimpse of some of the best circus acts in the world. The Spanish daredevil Algeria family on the giant wheel. The ringmaster is Australian, Simon Tate, who ran away from his Rockhampton home to join a circus and has spent all his adult life doing what he enjoys. There are animals too, but Michael Edgley denies he's bowed to pressure to eliminate a wild animal act from the program.
We've chosen, what should I say, the more user-friendly animals, and we've stayed away from all the caged animals and any controversial animals.
However, there is a cage of death. The McValleys brought their racing motorbikes from the United States. Each night they defy gravity and broken limbs, racing their machines around the inside of a steel mesh globe. The audience sees the action from the outside, but NBN's intrepid Chief of Staff, Jeff Greaves, stepped inside, held his breath and calmed his nerves as the two cyclists rode at breakneck speed around him.
It's been a long road for David Simmons since he joined the NBL 8 seasons ago. The 205-centimetre power forward played 240 consecutive games with the Melbourne Tigers, but left at the end of last season to join the Falcons. Since then, Simmons been invaluable, launching 14 points a game and grabbing 8 rebounds. Simmons says it's been a career packed with highlights.
Winning the championship in 1993 and probably some just in the early season with the Falcons, you know, having our first win under a new coach and then having a big win last week.
The Falcons will be looking to Simmons and Boomers rep Tony Jensen to repeat last week's win over the Adelaide 36ers. Coach Sean Dennis is hoping the enthusiasm of the Falcons' young guns will win over the experience of the Bullets.
Sometimes you can be experienced with enthusiasm, and I think that's what we've got to do again. Last week we came out against an experienced team in the 36ers, and we're able to use our enthusiasm to overcome a lot of that. And I think it's important that our young guys come out with that same enthusiasm week in, week out.
Tip-off tomorrow night is at 7:30. Blake Doyle, NBN News.
Since 1992, Ron and Gwen March have recycled their effluent using the treated water in their garden. They installed a $5,000 super treat system on their Arcadia Vale property southwest of Newcastle when the sewer wasn't available. Now, however, with the Westlake Sewerage Scheme online, Lake Macquarie Council wants the Marches to abandon their recycling system and connect to the sewer. But the Marches don't want to, and they've taken the matter to the Land and Environment Court. This case is about more than just one couple taking on their local council. In Lake Macquarie alone, there are some 21 property owners who have refused to connect to the Westlake sewage system. It's a case which will have ramifications for alternative users throughout the state. Under the Local Government Act, residents must connect to the sewerage system if it's available. This is the first time that law has been challenged. Giving evidence today, John Patterson of the Hunter Water Corporation. He says the Westlake Sewerage Scheme was built to cater for a certain number of residents, and if those residents don't use the system, then those that have connected will be forced to pay increased charges. The Marchers, however, believe they should be allowed the right to recycle if their system is operating efficiently and effectively. A decision on the matter will be made at a later date. Jodie McKay, NBN News.
It's been a tough fortnight for Newcastle after a big loss to Eastwood. The Wildfires were thumped by Sydney Uni last weekend. Trying to spark the form that helped Newcastle reach the top 5, Coach Keith Gollan has made several changes. His decisions made easier by the return of New South Wales under-21 players Jared Heaney and Andrew James.
Will certainly help our speed around the paddock, and it gives us a little bit more height in the line out, all along the line out, and obviously they're talented players if they're playing at that level, and we're glad to have them back.
The two Blues have never beaten the Wildfires and they've made only one trip to Newcastle. That was last year and the locals won on the Siren with a thrilling 6-point victory.
Yeah, they'll be out to sort of rectify that, and we're just as keen to keep it that way.
Newcastle Rugby Union's representative side has left for its assault on Country Week at Wagga. Central West and Illawarra are again the teams to beat, but the Novocastrians are confident of causing an upset after their recent efforts in the Steel City Challenge.
With the 2 weeks preparation, we should have improved that 10 or 20%, so hopefully we'll be in the right position come Monday.
In '96, Newcastle was beaten by Central West in the semis. Despite some magic from halfback Steve Merrick, he's back again to help Newcastle take on Riverina in its opening match. Jonathan Upton, NBN News. A muddy opening to round 9 of the league, although West had no problems in weathering the conditions. The Rosellas showed all of their class by opening the scoring with an entertaining try. Toronto missed its chances to fight back, the Scorpions offline with the boot, and when their tired defence cracked again before the break, West were home and hosed. Union in Newcastle has returned to the winner's circle with a hard-fought victory over Parramatta. The Wildfires started well when Nathan Freese put himself into the back line. And while the visitors crossed twice before half-time, Newcastle finished too strongly. After a loss and draw in its opening 2 matches, Newcastle had to win today to scrape through to the final 4, but Goulburn did everything to keep the locals out. The visitors weathered a barrage of Newcastle attack to keep the match locked at 0-0 at half-time. Goulburn made the most of the break, but their new team tactics didn't even get a look in at the start of the second term. After less than a minute, Newcastle broke the deadlock. The match finished 1-0, Newcastle missing out on the finals on for and against. Defending champion Sutherland is again the team to beat in the state netball titles after 2 days of competition at National Park. The Sydney Siders continued their dominance by flogging Borkham Hills. Newcastle felt the wrath of the tournament favourites earlier in the day, but the locals bounced back in their next match against Coffs Harbour, with goal attack Melinda Bailey and goal shooter Christina Fries combining well up front. Newcastle carried on with similar intensity to take the match 23-8, and they loom as Sutherland's main danger. And committed defence has been the backbone of Manly's powerhouse display in the under-19s. In the battle of the leaders, they beat Borkham Hills 18 goals to 14. Souths was far from impressive in its last match of Marathon, but the Lions' form of old returned for the clash against the Bay. Captain coach Darren Ford taking the Red and Whites to a 10-2 lead. The Marlins tried to give the game away with mistakes in their own territory, their tired defence not enough to stop South's hooker Adrian McNabb. When the Bay lost workhorse John Gutherson to injury just before half-time, it was all but over. Out of dummy half, McNabb backed himself for his second try of the match and the Lions' 6th win of the season. After 9 rounds of the competition, Lakes remain out in front, 2 victories in advance of Wests. Souths and Curry share equal 3rd place, while Maitland, Cessnock, Central and Waratah Mayfield still have a game in hand.
For more than half a century, Morpeth musician Dot Hamilton has helped bring music to dozens of service, community and elderly groups.
I get a great deal of pleasure out of taking these concerts to various places.
It's been a big year. A few months ago, Dot was named a Freeman of the City of Maitland. Her Medal of the Order of Australia coming as quite a surprise.
It's just wonderful to receive this award, and I haven't realised it yet. It was all such a shock.
73-year-old Doug Matthews of Maryland was today celebrating with his wife of nearly 50 years, Audrey. A Rotarian for 36 years, he's been recognised for his commitment to serving others.
Helping some people that aren't as fortunate as yourself, but I enjoy doing it. That's all there is about it, you know.
Other recipients include Reg Howard for his service to veterans and the community, former State Minister and Upper Hunter MLA Colin Fisher for service to government and the community, and receiving the Conspicuous Service Medal, Sergeant Sean Bamforth of Williamtown RAF Base.
.30-knot winds made it tough going for the Russell Island Ski Classic. The breeze blew away chances of record-breaking action, while local pair Wayne Moore and Steve Robinson issued their own cyclone watch. The local pair made it look easy behind the wheel of Gavin Mackay. He drove cyclone racing to the limit over the 120-kilometre endurance. From Southport around Russell Island and back, the field raced the clock. Matt Gibson and Danny Cropper and their machine Stinger also produced the goods, although it wasn't enough to haul in the leaders of cyclone racing. For Wayne Moore and Steve Robinson, it's a perfect lead-up to the World Water Skiing Championships at Sydney in October.
With only 2 years before the big steelmaker shuts up shop, Newcastle is looking to the future. Business leaders are hoping they can play a part by strengthening their ties with the University of Newcastle.
It's important that we use the opportunities ahead of us, with the challenges being thrown down to us with BHP's recent decisions to reposition Newcastle as a very strong centre of economic activity.
As part of the deal, the Graduate School of Business is moving closer to its partner, converting 2 floors of University House in the centre of the city. Lecturers hope the $2.5 million redevelopment will increase student numbers by offering a wider range of business management courses in a larger facility.
We spend most of our time researching and trying to understand businesses, so it'd be good if we could talk to them and see them in action.
As well as creating lecture theatres and student rooms, the faculty will utilise this heritage-listed rotating theatre, formerly used to present cooking shows during the 1960s. The department will be operating in the next 18 months. Vanessa Spark, NBN News.